Today we're talking about Ahavas Yisrael, real love for real people. Now, loving real people is important because there aren't any unreal people around to love, are there? That means that we have to find in our hearts the capacity to love human beings, all of whom are flawed. And I'd like to start this kind of loving at home, where it seems to be the most challenging, but at the same time, it's the most real of the real loves. To be able to love the person we married, to be able to love the children that we were given. That's a huge accomplishment inside of us, and it will help us to love the other people, the ones that we choose to be friends with, the ones that Hashem puts in our path through being our neighbors or our colleagues or our community members, whoever they are, and eventually all of mankind. So, to be loving, to have the capacity to really love, means that we have accessed a certain kind of state inside of ourselves. And if you think about what love is, the state of openness, of generosity, of acceptance, of pleasure, all of the feelings of love feel good inside of the person who's doing the loving. And all of the other feelings, the opposite kinds of feelings of judgment, of anger, of resentment, of displeasure, of any kind of negativity, what those feelings do is they actually constrict our heart. They close it down, and they even tighten our muscles. And ultimately, they squish our cells so that nothing functions right inside of our body. And we can become ill through the compression of our natural state of lovingness. We were born to love. But those people, those people that we're supposed to love, they make it challenging for us with all of their human flaws. Now, just take the average spouse, for example. And I'm not talking here about people who are serial murderers or anything like that. Just your average spouse who may not be, let's say, as accomplished as you might have wanted, or who may not be as attractive anymore or ever as you might have hoped for, attractive to you, or who may not make as much money as you were hoping that they might make, or who have habits of being forgetful or neglectful, or maybe this person isn't the greatest parent in the world, or lacks many of the attributes of an excellent partner, even like, not a good listener, not a good helper, not great in the sharing responsibilities, not a responsible person. I'm just naming some of the top and most common flaws that human spouses tend to have. Let me just think if there's something else. I don't know, they're just not as friendly to your parents as you would have wanted, or they're just not as compassionate and understanding to you or to your children or whatever. Okay, I think I'm going over them now because I've mentioned the top ones, and there's so many other ones that I haven't mentioned, of course. But your average partner is a disappointment in some areas, okay? Sometimes in many, many areas. And the flaws of that person can make it hard to open one's heart. In fact, the flaws can cause so much upset and disappointment and anger that our heart is closed, it's shut. And we're going to find it difficult to clear that space and truly accept and love this imperfect partner. And the same thing can actually happen with one's children. There may be some kids that we have that are easier to love because they're just so adoring and they're so helpful and they're so smart, they're so perfect. They give us that nachas. They're just everything good about them. That's great. But then we have some other children perhaps who are so challenging, so difficult, so argumentative, so defiant, so making the household so crazy from their behaviors, so fighting with their siblings. These are not real grammatical sentences, I know that, but I think I'm just describing a certain kind of harder to love child, okay? And it just means that it feels like work to have to even like that child sometimes. And the older a child gets, sometimes the less likable they are to us because, I don't know, they may be more demanding, less helpful, not meeting our expectations, giving us more fear, worry, challenge, upset. And so the love is there at some level for children, usually, but we can't always access that loving feeling that we're after, that feeling of true enjoyment and pleasure in the other person. And that's those people closest to us, our spouse and our children. But then we have all these other people in our lives also that we're supposed to get along with, but it's so challenging. There's all of our own adult siblings, some of whom, we had problems with since we were toddlers, and some of whom are now in-law siblings, let's say new people coming into the family with all of their little quirks and their new flaws that we're not used to, and that we don't like as much as flaws that we're used to. I guess we don't like anybody's flaws, really. But anyways, these people, may not be caring enough or sharing enough or helpful enough or thoughtful enough. They may be annoying in a variety of ways. I'm not really saying anything new here. I'm just saying that it's hard to like people. We get very judgmental. That's something that's easy for us to do. And in fact, if we look at it from the point of view of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination that kind of wants to drag us away from fulfilling our ability to emulate Hashem, then it's very, very easy for us to find fault with almost everybody because everybody has faults. So we can easily zero in on those, and that will stop us from enjoying them, liking them, and certainly loving them, right? Even ourselves, okay? Like if we look at ourselves and we think, okay, we also have a few things that are not so perfect. There's two ways we can go with that. One is we overlook all of our flaws. We don't even see our flaws. We go like, yes, I do have a few flaws. I'm too giving. I'm too nice. I don't set enough boundaries. Like there's that kind of person who just like cannot see that he or she actually has more serious flaws than that. And then there's those of us who have flaws and we're just so hard on ourselves. It's like, I'm not, social enough. I'm not wealthy enough. I'm not successful enough, accomplished enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not this enough or that enough. And we can even hate ourselves, which is not Ahavas Yisrael either, because we're part of that community. Okay? We're supposed to love ourselves too. So, I've just reviewed here some of the challenges to self-love, love of others. And I haven't talked about our community members and our neighbors and all that, but it's just more of the same, okay? Because people have flaws. And negativity has this way of standing out so strongly in our eyes. Like positivity, it's harder to see. Negativity, we're programmed to see and to care about and to work with mentally. So we ruminate about negativity, we focus on negativity, we delve into negativity, and our mind goes with it. And again, this is all to pull us away from our true godly nature. This is not correct, but this is what happens, whether it's negativity about ourselves or about anybody else. So we're going to look at a couple of workarounds for this so that we might improve in our Ahavas Yisrael. And one of them is to start with accepting that there are flaws in everybody. And let's look closely, for example, at a spouse, which presents a lot of challenge to people because we have big expectations for our partners, that they should partner the way we want them to partner, So if we start there, it's easier, to take it out with these the further a person gets from us, the easier it is to like them, the closer they are to us, the bigger the challenge is. So if we can kind of master that, then we'll be good at loving everybody. So when I say accept the flaws, I don't mean an intellectual understanding that, yeah, we're all broken. That's true, but that's not what I'm referring to here. What I'm referring to is really paying attention to those flaws, accepting that they're not going to change, okay? Like, even when you work with a person to try and bring out the best in them, your spouse particularly, let's say, or your child, you may have a positive impact, but you can never be sure if you're going to. And if you have a little positive impact, you may still be left with lots of other things that are wrong, even if you manage to fix a little something here or there, you know? So when I mean accept, I mean grieve, actually. Grieve the loss of the dream of perfection, of the kind of spouse that you wanted. Or sometimes it's going to be the kind of friend that you wanted, or the kind of parent that you wanted, or the kind of child that you wanted, and so on. But taking the nearest and dearest for a moment, we can see that that grief process is hard, because it means that it's almost like we're going to give up trying to change the person. And we're going to have to accept that this person's flaws are there and they're not going anywhere. Now, if you feel real pain over that, you're actually on your way to where we want you to go, because it means that you're not anymore trying to fix. If I just say this, if I just do that, if I just whatever, this therapist, this counseling, this whatever will fix it. And yes, it does fix some things, right? But we're still always going to be left with flaws because we're flawed. And yet Hashem loves us. Hashem loves us with our flaws. And we're going to try to emulate that. We're not going to get rid of all of the flaws. We'll work on perfecting ourselves and our relationships. We can work to bring out the best in the people that are nearest and dearest to us, of course. Or the best in everybody, right? By smiling at them and treating them nicely and so on. But they're still going to be left with big flaws, and like we are. And there will be a sadness and a disappointment about that. Okay? There is a loss to us in any area in which we finally accept, truly accept, that the person is broken in that way, whatever way it is. Okay, so not able to use words, let's say, to tell us how much they love us, or not able to show that love in a variety of ways, not able to do what we want them to do, or to be the way we want them to be. And it's not essentially going to change enough for us to be satisfied. And now we're going to start the accepting and grieving process, okay? Because that's sad once you finally come to terms with it. On the other hand, when you finally come to terms with it, it's also liberating, because now we don't have to keep working so hard to fix it, and we can put our attention elsewhere. Now, this mirrors the whole process of how a person becomes happy to begin with, okay? And happiness is also at the center of our being if we stop looking at all the negativity. So let's look at the world now. We'll take it away from people for a minute, and we'll look at the world. So the world has a lot of very, very beautiful, amazing, awesome, blessed things in it. And it has a lot of painful, awful, hideous things in it, as far as we're concerned. I mean, we know that it's all good in some sense, but when we see young mothers die, or we see the suffering and pain of people going through illness or injury or whatever, we see poverty, and I don't want to go on the list. I don't think I have to point out to you how bad the world can be, right? So now we can put our attention on all those bad things. We can conjure up images of the future and how bad it will continue to be. That's called worrying, okay? Picturing bad things that are going to happen. Or we could think of all the bad things that did happen. That's called ruminating. Or we could just leave the bad things where they are and put most of our attention on the good things. When I say most of our attention, I mean we do have to deal with the pain in the world and in our circle of life. We have to deal with it. But we don't have to deal with it all day long. And this is the same with what we've just said about people, that we do have to acknowledge that they are frustrating and disappointing and annoying and everything else. But we don't have to only look at that, okay? So let's say, going back to the happiness thing, half the world, I said, half, more than half, but let's call it half for now, is full of blessings, of beauty, of magnificence, of whatever. And if we look over there, all the things that are fun, that are good, that are healthy, that are positive, that are kind, that are pleasurable, all those things, when we put our attention there, we're going to feel pretty good all day long. And Hashem is going to reward us immediately, because when we put our attention there, Hashem fills our body with the greatest chemistry ever, which is renewing and refreshing and energizing. And it makes us healthy physically, mentally, spiritually. Did I say what? Cognitively. We even think better, okay? So it's all, Hashem rewards us in Olam Hazeh for putting our attention on the good side of life. And also in Olam Haba, because it's a mitzvah to be happy. So in the same way, if we put our attention on the good side of people, on whatever it is that they're bringing to the table, and move our attention away from the flaw to the good side as much as we can during the day, okay? If we have to deal with the flaw or the difficult side of life, either of those two things, we will do it by appointment, let's say once a day. So once a day we sit down with ourselves, I say like at 9 o'clock at night when you have some time, and you sit down and you deal with your problems. And some of those problems will be situations that need addressing, like your personal financial problem or your personal health problem or whatever, a child rearing problem, whatever kind it is. And you'll deal with it by problem solving. And after you've done all the problem solving, then you can deal with it by feeling the emotions and by helping yourself work through the emotions. And you have to learn a few techniques for doing that. But let's say you just journaled even. You just wrote down what it feels like to be dealing with it. I mean, there's many more sophisticated techniques, but was just, even if you did that one, okay? Where you're just talking to yourself, or you're talking to Hashem about the way you feel about the situation. Or the person, right? So maybe there's a person whose flaws are impacting on you. They're making you sad. They're hurting you. Maybe you need to do some problem solving there about what you can do to get that person's attention and to help them more. But after you've done all the problem solving, it's as far as you're going to get. You're going to do that emotional release, the sadness, the pain, the disappointment. Get that out of your way once a day, okay? But not all day, so that you don't have to carry tremendous resentment, anger, all this stuff from the past, from the first, let's say, if you were married, 30 years or 40 years, everything that happened at Sheva Brachos, like way, way back. And you don't have to carry all this negativity forward in your consciousness all the time. If you deal with it and you release it in these little self-therapy moments once a day, like I said, between 9 and 9:15 or 9 and 9:30, but daily, you do a cleansing. You pay attention to whatever is negative and problematic in your world and in your relationships with people, and you deal with it then. And the rest of the day, you're concentrating all of your energy, focusing all of your attention on the blessings of having a person in your life, even if that person's annoying right now. Do you know, when it comes to crisis, and all of a sudden a person's life is threatened, heaven forbid, and it looks like you might lose them, all of a sudden they become pure gold to you. It's like, I can't live without this person. This might be a person who you're fighting with constantly, right? But this can happen that, you don't want to lose that person because actually you do value them, okay? But you're not really thinking about it until you're, heaven forbid, about to lose them. So we don't want it to get like that, right? We want to appreciate them every day. They may not be great at telling us that they love us or buying us gifts or remembering our birthdays or remembering even to take out the garbage, but perhaps they're funny, okay? Perhaps they're a great parenting partner. I'm talking again about spouses, obviously, but it's not only spouses, it's anybody that you're dealing with that could have some positive role in your life, that you need to focus on what is the good that they bring to the table. And as you think about that, again, your body is filled with the healing chemistry. Your heart rate variability balances out to be exactly what it should be for the optimal functioning of every system in your body, and the way you feel emotionally, and the way you think. Your brain opens up and you're creative and able to solve problems, and spiritually close to Hashem. The whole thing, you are rewarded for looking for the good. So this is what we all need to work on constantly. And as we get better and better at it, we build a more positive brain, because anything that we practice, we get more kind of wires, I call it, but it's really neural pathways and sophisticated patterns in the brain. But when you practice something, you get quite good at it. So if you've been practicing fault finding, criticizing, negativity, you become quite good at it. You can see what's wrong with everybody around you, and you're judgmental and negative, and you suffer. You suffer here and you suffer there, okay? And you suffer with the person, because you can't even get yourself unlocked from that negativity. So in true Ahavas Yisrael, we accept that the person has lots wrong with them, not just the person, but every person, including, as I said, you and me. So with all of this, we're minimizing our attention to that, and we're maximizing putting our attention purposefully, intentionally, on the good side. As we do that again and again, every time we look for the good, our brain starts to search out for good. And as it finds good, it becomes better and better and better at that. So soon we wake up happy, we wake up positive, we wake up enjoying the life that we have with the people that we have in that life. Now, I know that this sounds a little bit simplistic, maybe, but I know that it takes a lot of work, because there's a lot of pain from people. I think we all suffer. Some of us more, some of us less. It depends on our genes, what we brought into our perspective, what we were programmed with from Hashem, okay? And then the way we were raised and the models that we received, and then the traumas that we experienced, and the pain that we have right now with the significant people in our lives. There are a lot of factors that go into how easy or how difficult this exercise will be. But Hashem wants us to do it, wants us to find love, and like I said, rewards us immediately, like with a carrot, like you're in the right path as soon as you start to feel good. So, I think that the work of practicing, and you know that you're doing it right when you actually feel good. It's not a cognitive exercise like, oh yeah, this person can be kind to strangers, even though he's not kind to me, I don't mean that. I mean that you encounter something that you like, and you feel the feeling of liking. That's what I mean, okay? It's not a mental understanding that the person has some good traits. It's actually the pleasure in your own body that starts all of this reward process that tells you that you're on the right track. So you need to feel the goodness. Like, I really, think about, his smile or her smile, or, how this person makes you feel when it's all working properly, right? So a good feeling, a happy memory, a happy focus of something that this person makes you feel warm and fuzzy when you're thinking about it. And you find more and more and more of those. And you think about them. So you actually concentrate long enough to feel that warm, happy feeling coming into your body, then you've got it. If you're not feeling that feeling, you're not doing it right yet. And it may be a difficult process at first, because you might be used to carrying so much pain that it's hard to get out of it and to start thinking about that person being good. And I'm talking about, you can move this to strangers, and not strangers. Well, okay, let's talk about strangers just briefly. Because, we can dislike strangers on sight. We don't like what they're wearing. We don't like, how they look. Even there, we can train ourselves to find something automatically about every person that we encounter that we like. And we have to like it enough that we're feeling a good feeling. We can train ourselves, but it's a learning process and a practicing process. So with strangers, all the way up to, our relatives and the people that we're closest to, and our loved ones who we want to be loving. That will be Ahavas Yisrael, loving real people, real love for real people. Oh,